Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Natalia Moczulska and this is the news. Day 309 of war in Ukraine. In the early morning hours, Russian troops launched a massive missile barrage across Ukrainian territory. Explosions could be heard in Kiev, Kharkiv, Lviv, as well as Odessa, Zhytomyr, Poltava, Mykolaiv and Sumy regions, among others. Fortunately, anti-aircraft defenses managed to shoot down 80% of the missiles. In the morning, Russian missiles once again struck critical infrastructure facilities in Ukraine. Missiles fell on Kiev and Lviv, among other cities. Both cities are experiencing power outages. At 7 a.m., the enemy launched a massive strike on Ukrainian territory, during which cruise missiles and S-300 and S-400 air-to-air missiles were launched from the air and sea, targeting critical infrastructure and energy facilities. The enemy used more than 69 missiles. Our country's air defense destroyed 54 missiles. One of the targets was a maternity hospital in Kherson. After the first hit, there were two. One was right here. We covered the crater. The second hit, you can see the effects. After the attack, the explosion started. We immediately moved the pregnant women to the basement and then moved them to our main hall, where they spent the night. Today, after the examination, we allowed them to go home. It was terrifying, also unexpected. The explosion started suddenly. Glass flew out of the windows. There was glass everywhere. To be honest, my hands are still shaking. In the Ivano-Frankivsk region, a missile hit an apartment block. The missile slammed into the building but did not explode. During the night, the Russians shelled Zaporizhia. Regional Governor Oleksandr Staruch reported on the situation in the city. The missiles destroyed several buildings, damaged a gas pipeline and a power line. Fortunately, there were no casualties. The enemy will not rest as long as it lives. We will rebuild the damage. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones, especially today. I laid down in bed, and a while later I fell asleep. When I woke up, everything was shaking. I got up and started calling my husband. I ran barefoot over the glass. I finally found him. There were many shards on his clothes. Over Kiev alone, Ukrainians shot down 15 Russian missiles. President Volodymyr Zelensky appealed to compatriots for unity at an extremely difficult time. Please find time to say kind words to your loved ones, and even if not to people close to you, just to other Ukrainians. And if someone is in a difficult situation, in a difficult time, remains alone and for some reason has no relatives, please ask if she or he doesn't need help. British ambassador to Ukraine, Melinda Simons, was unequivocal in her assessment that Russia is seeking to escalate the conflict. Russian missiles launched across Ukraine, including Kiev and Lviv. Civilians injured. Russia rejects President Zelensky's peace plan. Russia does not want peace with Ukraine. Meanwhile, analysts report that commodity prices on the Russian market are rising dramatically. In December alone, the price of gas rose by almost 14% and electricity by more than 12%. Sanctions are working. Only, of course, they are not working as fast as we all would like. Only problem is that it will still take some time. According to the U.S. Institute for the Study of War, the Russian offensive in the Bakhmut region has reached its climax. The prolonged stalemate on the front, unfavorable weather conditions, and logistical problems make it impossible for the Russians to capture the city. A former Civic Platform candidate from the West Pomeranian Voivodeship Assembly and proxy for PO Speaker Olgierd Gemblewicz has been sentenced to nearly 5 years in prison for pedophilia and drug possession. Krzysztof F. supported Rafał Trzaskowski's presidential campaign. Krzysztof F. was sentenced by a non-final judgment in July 2021 by the district court in Szczecin. The court, after hearing an appeal by the defense attorney and prosecutor, imposed a sentence of 4 years and 10 months imprisonment. The crime occurred in August 2020. Krzysztof F. was convicted of 3 acts. First, he committed another sexual act with a minor aged 13. Also, he was convicted of giving intoxicating substances to a 16-year-old minor and attempting to give the same substance to a minor. The third act involves possession of substantial quantities of narcotic substances. In Krzysztof F.'s apartment, police found nearly 400 grams of marijuana. The convict worked for more than 20 years in the marshal's office of the West Pomeranian Voivodeship, where he was in charge of children's addiction prevention and was also a provincial expert on information about drugs and drug addiction. Marshal Olgierd Gemblewicz appointed him as a plenipotentiary for solving addiction problems. He ran with PO for the provincial assembly. He also supported Trzaskowski's election campaign and was an activist in the LGBTQ+ community. He ran an association supporting LGBTQ+ people. He also participated in marches organized by the community. Szczecin journalists admit that they found out about the case by accident, despite the fact that the verdict became final a year ago. There was a kind of conspiracy of silence in the circles associated with the civic platform, as well as in the media favoring the total opposition. Krzysztof F. was active in various types of associations that go into schools and have contact with children, and these types of organizations should be very strongly evaluated when it comes to entering schools. So far, leading civic platform politicians, including Rafał Trzaskowski, have not addressed the case in any way. It puts Donald Tusk's political party in a terrible light. No, I'm not surprised in that case that the party has defended the tightening of penalties for pedophiles so strongly. This is my assessment, and I believe that the civic platform has consistently worked on the image of a party that defends pedophiles. On December 2nd, President Andrzej Duda signed an amendment to the criminal code. Among other things, the penalties for crimes of a sexual nature and pedophilia have been tightened. Until now, the penalty for rape with particular cruelty was 15 years in prison. Now, the court can impose 30 years or life imprisonment. Earlier, the reform was rejected by the Senate, where the total opposition has a majority. Amid the war in Ukraine, an archived BBC interview with the late Senator John McCain, who died in 2018, is making waves online. Shortly after the annexation of Crimea, the Republican politician predicted Vladimir Putin's plans and criticized the U.S. authorities for refusing to deliver weapons to Ukraine.
I predict to you that it will be another step in Vladimir Putin's strategy to separate eastern Ukraine from Ukraine and perhaps a land bridge to Crimea. No, it's a very bad result. And again, we would not send weapons to the Ukrainians when they were begging for them. We wouldn't even give them intelligence because we didn't want to, quote, provoke Vladimir Putin. By showing weakness, we provoked Vladimir Putin. We have to understand that Vladimir Putin's ambitions are the restoration of the old Russian Empire.
But he has never said, has he, that he wants eastern Ukraine to be incorporated into Russian territory?
What he has said is, well, just a few days ago, he said, I could take Kiev in 2 weeks. But what he has said is that he wants Nova Russia, which is an old Tsarist phrase, which means he wants eastern Ukraine. He wants to make sure he keeps Crimea, and he would like to see, if he can get away with it, Moldova and the Baltics as well. That's what he wants to see restored. He cannot afford to see a free, democratic, prosperous Ukraine because the Russian people then would like to be like Ukraine. There's nothing that provokes Vladimir Putin more than weakness.
At least 19 people were killed, around 60 injured, and up to 30 were missing after a huge fire tore through a casino hotel complex in a Cambodian town on the border with Thailand. More than 400 people were in the building when the fire broke out. A Thai rescuer at the scene said they recovered 14 bodies before the figure was later updated to 19. Rescuers struggled to extricate people trapped. Right now, there are 14 deaths at the temple and around 34 injured, helped by Thai and Cambodian rescue teams. The wounded are getting treated in Thai hospitals. The dead that we know of now are Thai, as the IDs show. They are now waiting to be identified. Sek Sokhom, head of the Provincial Information Department, said 60 people had been injured in total. Kyu Sop-hik, an Interior Ministry spokesperson, had earlier said it was not clear how many people were still inside the charred building. Max stayed behind to help the woman and the pregnant woman escape. I saw from a video clip, I think it was him. He hung onto a rope attached to a fire basket, and it broke. He didn't die from fire or smoke. Mostly people who are in there are local Thais. I'm sad, and I think if help came faster, the rescue came faster, there wouldn't be this much loss. About 400 employees and patrons were in the Grand Diamond City Casino and Hotel in the town of Phoi Phet when the fire broke out around midnight, and up to 30 were still missing. A key part of Cambodia's tourism industry, important for its economy, casinos in the capital of Phnom Penh and on the borders with Vietnam and Thailand, are a draw for visitors from Asian nations that ban gambling. Casinos in Phoi Phet are hugely popular with short-term Thai visitors, in particular as gambling is illegal and unlicensed casinos operate underground in the neighboring country. At least 25 people were being treated in hospitals in Sakao province across the border, Thai authorities said. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Please stay tuned for Poland Daily Weather, Poland Daily Business, and some of our other programs. But for me, it's have a wonderful evening.